Welcome to Arjuna Talks. Arjuna Talks is an effort to address the concerns of a typical business house, an entrepreneur, and every employer. Today's topic covers a few common concerns around the Employee Provident Fund. Many of our clients keep raising these doubts, and we have consolidated these questions, and it's getting covered today. Should you require any clarity on any of the topics, feel free to reach us on our contacts. The first question: our establishment is covered under the EPF Act, and we are remitting EPF contribution promptly for all the EPF covered employees. But we occasionally engage workers on contract basis for repairing, painting, housekeeping, gardening, and furnishing works. Are we legally bound to pay EPF contribution to these workers also?
As you know, EPF Act, Employees Provident Fund Act, is a very powerful and effective social welfare legislation. It does not differentiate between permanent, regular, casual, temporary, or contract workers. In fact, the word employee is defined under Section 2F of the EPF Act, and that definition is very wide, which engulf, I would say, which embrace almost all type of employees. So, if an employer is engaging a contract worker through a contractor, and if the contractor is not remitting EPF contribution for that employee, the principal employer is liable to remit EPF contribution for that contract worker. Section 6 of the EPF Act, read with para 29 of the EPF scheme, says that an employer is bound to pay EPF contribution for all type of employees. If a particular person is coming under the definition of Section 2F, then the employer is legally bound to remit EPF contribution for that employee. In your case, you have engaged certain employees on contract basis for cleaning or repairing or for furnishing or for maintenance work, whatever may be the nature of work. If those employees are engaged through a contractor, if the contractor is having a proper code number, employer code number, he can remit the contribution for that employee. In that case, you have to obtain a copy of the ECR and keep that ECR in your file, because it is the obligation of the principal employer to ensure that.
The next question: we have engaged a part-time sweeper in our establishment, and she is doing sweeping work in other nearby establishments also, and those establishments as well are covered under the EPF Act. In the circumstance, are we legally bound to pay EPF contribution to the part-time sweeper?
As I have just explained, a part-time sweeper is also an employee as per the EPF Act. As you have just explained, your part-time sweeper is working in other nearby establishments. Maybe that establishments are covered under the EPF Act. But since that part-time sweeper is drawing wages from your establishment, you have to remit EPF contribution for that employee also. Because the EPF Act does not differentiate between part-time employee or regular employee. So, a part-time employee working in your establishment is eligible for coverage, and you have to remit EPF contribution for the amount for the wages given to her.
The next question is it obligatory to pay EPF contribution for subsistence allowance?
Subsistence allowance is not wages. Subsistence allowance is usually paid to an employee when he is under suspension pending inquiry. He is not on duty. If an employee is not on duty and if he is not earning wages, then it is not obligatory to pay EPF contribution for that employee. In this case, since subsistence allowance is not wages, you are not bound to pay any contribution for the subsistence allowance paid to that employee.
Question 4. Will it be legally permissible to segregate minimum wages into basic wages, HRA, DA, and other allowances so as to enable us to reduce the burden of EPF contribution?
If you are segregating minimum wages into basic, DA, and HRA, then you can limit your EPF contribution for basic wages and DA, because HRA is exempted as per the EPF Act. The basic wages is defined under section 2B of the EPF Act. In that definition, HRA is an exempted factor. That means an employer is not bound to pay EPF contribution for HRA.
The next question is on the bonus and incentives. Does the production bonus or a production incentive has to be covered under the EPF?
Production bonus or production incentive, if it is linked with the productivity, or if there is a specific scheme for the eligibility, for deciding the eligibility of production incentive or production bonus, it won't be considered as wages for the purpose of EPF contribution. But if all the employees are equally eligible for production bonus or incentive, it will have to be considered as part of the basic wages, and the employer has to remit the EPF contribution also. The Supreme Court in its various decisions has made it clear that if all the employees are eligible for a particular allowance, it has to be considered as a part of basic wages, and the EPF contribution has to be paid.
The next question is, can an employee make voluntary contribution to the EPF over and above the prescribed rate of 12%? Can he change his voluntary contribution as and when required? Whether the employer has to remit equal share of contribution?
Yes, an employee can voluntarily contribute to the EPF over and above the prescribed limit, that is 12%. But the employer can limit his contribution to the prescribed limit of 12%, because he is not under any obligation to remit contribution over and above the prescribed limit of 12% of the wages. At present it is 15,000. See, if an employee opts for remitting voluntary contribution at a higher level, he has to continue the remittance till the end of the financial year. That is, only from the start of the next financial year he can alter or he can change the rate.
And add on to the same question, is it advisable to an employee to make a higher contribution voluntarily to his share of EPF?
As you know, it is better to contribute more to the EPF, because the interest rate when compared to the existing bank interest rate is very good. The EPF department is offering 8.5% of interest for the deposit, whereas in the bank you will get only say 5 to 6%. So it is always advisable to remit more to the EPF fund.
The next question is, does the arrears of wages attract EPF?
Arrears of wages to be paid to the employees by virtue of an agreement or an award or a settlement is wages. It is wages as per section 2B of the EPF Act. So contribution has to be paid for arrears of wages paid to the employees.
Another question is around the maternity benefits. Does the maternity benefit attract EPF contribution?
Yes. Maternity benefit given to an employee will attract EPF contribution because as per section 2B, as I have already stated, as per section 2B of the EPF Act, wages means all emoluments earned by an employee while on duty or on leave or on holidays with leave. During the period of maternity leave, an employee is on leave with wages. So, EPF contribution has to be paid for the maternity benefit.
The next question is it obligatory to make EPF contribution for consultants and those employees who are working from home?
Consultants or persons working at home will be considered as employees of the establishment if that persons are drawing wages from that establishment. A person need not be present in the establishment for considering as the employee of that establishment, because persons directly employed and indirectly employed are employees as per the definition given to the word employee in the EPF Act. So even if certain persons are working at home, they have to be considered as employees, provided they are drawing wages from the establishment. And if that establishment is covered under the EPF Act, contribution has to be paid to the emoluments given to the home workers or persons working at home, or to the retainers, or to the consultants.
The next question is, when an employee is reinstated with back wages, is it mandatory to pay EPF contribution on the back wages?
When an award is passed by a judicial forum, it can be labor court or judicial tribunal or even high court, to reinstate an employee with back wages, the employer need not remit EPF contribution for the back wages to be paid to that employee, because back wages is only a compensation. It don't come under the definition of basic wages. So the employer is not bound to pay EPF contribution for the back wages to be paid to an employee who is reinstated as per the direction given by a judicial forum.
The next question is it mandatory to make EPF contribution to every set of employees in an organization? Is there any category which is being exempted?
As per section 2F of the EPF Act, all category of employees will be considered as employees for the purpose of EPF coverage. But two categories are specifically exempted. One is apprentices. Apprentices appointed as per the provisions of the Apprenticeship Act. Another is trainees. If the establishment is having a certified standing order, then trainees are exempted. However, certain High Court have held that if the trainees are drawing wages and if the trainees are doing work similar to the permanent employees, then they will have to be considered as employees of the establishment, and the EPF contribution has to be paid for that trainees also.
Thank you for watching Arjuna Talks. We trust today's topic was able to cover most of the queries around the Employee Provident Fund. Should you require any more clarity on any of the topic, feel free to reach us on our contacts. Once again, thank you for watching. Do share these videos among your circle. It might be of help to someone who is in need of it. Please like and subscribe our channel, Arjuna Talks. A WhatsApp group has been created to send daily updates on the relevant topics. Just send an admin message onto the mentioned number here.